Authorities. The Animal Rescue Corps was sent to the home to help the Dyer City Police Department with what was described as a large and urgent cruelty case. Officials say the property owners moved away and returned only to feed the animals, leaving them neglected with numerous untreated injuries and infections from overcrowding, fighting, and highly toxic ammonia levels. Inside the home, there were dogs of all ages and sizes, including puppies as young as 3 weeks old, pregnant mothers, and elderly dogs with dementia, all of them now being treated at a rescue center outside Nashville for urgent care. Mary Corsetti, Fox News.
And stocks slid Wednesday. All three major indexes down more than 1%. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
we want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Check out the newest hydro and garden center to hit Guam, Crop King Hydro. We have a huge selection of plant nutrients, soils, hydroponic mediums, organic pest control pumps, plant support, tools, and so much more. Call 635-4769. 635-GROW. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 at the Dededo Satina Mall, right across from Payless and Paradise Fitness. For whatever you grow, think Crop King Hydro. Crop King Hydro.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right of the people to listen to Tall Tales every afternoon at 1600 shall not be infringed. So I'm glad you're out there, and let me know if anybody tries to infringe on your right to listen to this show. That would be very, very serious. It's not part of the United States Constitution. It should be. Perhaps the next time that a constitutional convention is called, right-thinking members of the convention will make sure that it goes into the United States Constitution. But for now, you got a radio, or you got you're in your car, you got access to Facebook, you got access to YouTube. You're all set because you are tuned in to Tall Tales, the top-rated afternoon talk show in at least the Western Pacific, if not a larger area.
So says Wikipedia.
Yeah, absolutely. So says Tall Talesopedia, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start out today with Zemi Ikutni. You know, they would have been better off just running, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, and the stuff that they've been running here lately. It would have showed a greater level of maturity, Jose. Okay, our view. This is Daily News telling us our view. New year, new season approaches. What can we do for Guam in 2023? No! I know what I'm going to do, Jose. I'm going to continue to be the host of the absolute best afternoon talk show on the island. You want to share with our viewers what you're going to do for 2023?
I'm going to continue to sit next to the best talk show host on the island in this producer's booth.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than that, Jose.
It's all planned out.
And I suspect there will be a time when you not only do that, but you move over. When we play musical chairs on Tall Tales and you actually move into the pilot seat here, fly the plane for a few weeks.
It happens sometimes. Buckle your seatbelt.
Yes, sir. Okay, so here it is. Landon Idlett, a Pacific Daily News columnist for the National Weather Service Guam Forecast Office, said it perfectly in this week's Wednesday column. A season of change is upon us. Our community has been busy in recent days. Now, when the weatherman says that, what he's talking about is we're going from the rainy season to the dry season. And you see signs of the dry season beginning already. We have a breeze. It still rains fairly often, but it cools off a little bit more at night. And it had been a couple of mornings when I'm sitting on my front porch with a hot cup of coffee between the drizzle and the wind. I was actually cold, but I somehow survived it. Okay, back to the editorial. Our community has been busy in recent days. Beyond the usual chaos of the holiday season, our government leaders are gearing up for a new term of public service. Public service? You know, one of the things that we do here on Tall Tales, I try to enforce rules that we use words in their proper context. And if you're talking public service, then you're talking maybe the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, maybe some of the service clubs like Rotary, Kiwanis. You're not talking about getting paid for holding down a government job. That is not public service. That is a job. That's employment. That's work. So I don't like to hear, yeah, well, you know, he dedicated 30 years of his life to public service. What Catholic charities? Oh, no, he worked at the Department of Land Management. Well, what was his public service? Oh, I just told you. No, that's not public service. Okay. So here we go. Beyond the usual chaos of the holiday season, our government leaders are gearing up for a new term of public service. Not really. A new superintendent for the Department of Ed has been selected, and unfortunately, it seems as though each day presents a challenge that causes us to worry about our prosperity and public safety. Just this week, a man at work at a Southern Village convenience store was shot by an armed robber. Now, if they didn't tell us that he was an armed robber, we wouldn't have known, would we?
How did he hold the guns? Of course he's armed.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a robber.
He's a robber.
When he shot somebody, we know he's an armed robber. An armed robber, a suspect who at the time of this publication remained at large and unidentified. This type of crime doesn't happen often in our paradise here in the Marianas, leaving many of us to question how we, as a community, can keep such an incident from becoming the norm. I know how I'm going to do it. Yeah. It's called 38 Special. In response to these questions, we can talk about the steps we can take to protect ourselves, our homes, and our businesses. But perhaps our better course of action is to work together to explore the ways we can prevent these types of violent crimes from occurring in the first place. As we all reflect on the events of 2022, ponder what's in store for 2023 and set our own individual goals to conquer through the year. We encourage our readers to leave time and room for commitments to community service where we can make a difference, especially for youth and those who struggle in living situations that predispose them to lives of crime and violence. Now, I got to stop here on this, Jose. Those struggling in living situations that predispose them to lives of crime and violence. Now, I know what a lefty means by this, right? Yeah. The underprivileged, the underserved, the, what is the words? the marginalized.
Marginalized, yeah.
The marginalized people.
And that's just the legislature.
Yeah, yeah. But this is what it means to me. Those who struggle in living situations that predispose them to crime and violence. To me, that would be living in a situation where apparently life has no value.
Exactly. And you don't have to be impoverished to have a life with no value.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know a lot of people up and up who are predisposed to crime.
Yeah.
Just look at our corruption crimes.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion. I'll leave
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Get back to you.
and then of course we can't get past the people who are killed before they even have a chance to be born.
There you go.
And I know the smart money over there. Oh yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that, that are robbers and burglars and things like that. You always got to get abortion into it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Because what is the mental state of a community that thinks it's okay to take any life, much less or much more the life of a helpless, innocent human? Once you cross that bridge, then holding up a convenience store in Telefofo, that's small pickings. That's pretty.
Or
19th floor.
is easy to live on.
Yeah, the 19th floor. Yeah, I mentioned this the other day. One of my favorite TV shows, Better Call Saul, and it was a prequel to Breaking Bad, which my analysis is that 100 years from now, folks are going to look back at those two TV serials, and they're going to be kind of revered like much of Shakespeare's work is revered right now because they were so well done. And the scene that I mentioned the other day was Mike Ehrmantraut. Mike Ehrmantraut was this very ugly man, physically ugly, but personally very attractive because he always seemed to know what to do in a situation. Very capable, very competent, and in his own way, very moral. But during the course of the show, he went from a pretty moral guy who loved his granddaughter to a cold-blooded killer. And in one scene, when he's reminiscing with the title character, Saul Goodman, they're talking about important days of their life and what they would have done over again. And when it's Mike's turn, he says something like July 7, 1984. And Saul says, why is that date so important? And Mike said, it's the day I took my first bribe. Mike was a cop. Mike had a son that was a cop. Mike advised his son that he should go along with the cops that were on the take, because if they didn't, his life would be in danger. Well, the son was a better man than Mike. He wouldn't go along with the take. A couple of rogue cops killed him, and Mike killed them. And it all started with Mike taking that one bribe. So when you step across that line one time, it's not that hard to keep going and taking bigger and bigger steps. So let's really think about this when we read this sentence, especially for youth and those who struggle in living situations that predispose them to lives of crime and violence. Yeah, I know what I'm supposed to say. Yeah, but I'm not going to do it. Time isn't a luxury available to all, but participating in building a stronger community has no limits, especially as we think of ways to use our gifts and talents to give back to others. We hope to spark more discussions among our readers about the ways we can contribute to building a brighter future for Guam beyond the usual government solutions, which most of the time don't turn out to be solutions at all. And I'll demonstrate that when I get to the alternative editorial after I finish this. Our overall quality of life is a civic responsibility we all must share. and we bring you examples of these game changers, people and businesses daily. Let's connect with one another, learn from each other, and together keep Guam safe and prosperous through 2023. How does that make you feel, Jose?
Yay.
All right. Because the Post doesn't run editorials and hasn't for it's probably 4 months now, I'm always looking around for something I can read in that slot that has a sort of an editorial content. And today I've got a piece from John Stossel. John Stossel is a very practical conservative. He does not use big words. He keeps it simple and easy to understand. He's a straight shooter. He's a good guy. And here's what he says. Charity, better than government. And then he goes on, he starts by saying, it's the season for giving. I'll give. I'll donate to the Doe Fund, a charity that helps ex-cons find purpose in life through work. Work works, they say. It does. Doe Fund graduates are less likely to go back to jail. I'll donate to Student Sponsor Partners, which helps at-risk kids escape bad, meaning government-run schools. Student Sponsors Partners sends the kids to Catholic schools. Stossel says, I'm not Catholic, but I donate because Catholic schools do better at half the cost. Thousands of families break the cycle of poverty thanks to Student Sponsor Partners. When I was young, I assumed government would lift people out of poverty. I hope you're listening over there at the editorial boardroom. Government programs, a, quote, war on poverty, will give a leg up to the poor, said my Princeton professors. I believed. But then I watched the programs fail. Now I understand that government actions do as much harm as good, sometimes much more harm. Take the war on poverty. When it began, Americans were lifting themselves out of poverty. Year by year, the number of families below the poverty line decreased. Then came our government programs with their rules and programs. So far, they've spent $25 trillion on programs for the poor. I'll repeat that figure. $25 trillion on programs for the poor.
There should be a lot of millionaires.
There should be. Well, there are. It's just none of the people who were supposedly being helped. The money helped some people. The poverty rate dropped for the first 7 years of the war. But then progress stopped. Government handouts encouraged people to become dependent on handouts. Learned helplessness, it's called. Welfare created an underclass. Generations of people who don't work. They lose their benefits if they do. Generations of people bear children but don't marry. They lose benefits if they do. Government taught people to be passive. This passivity was something new and bad. That's why charity is better. Charity workers can make judgments about who needs help and who needs a push. Not all charities do good. Some are as bad as government. But when they are well run, charities encourage independence. They also don't force us to give them money. I got to stop here for a second and tell you about a conversation that I had with some people back in the mainland. And I was kind of repeating the same kinds of thoughts as Stossel here. And I pointed out that, it's hard. It's hard to be a champion of charity anymore when the government seems to have taken over the whole thing. So a lot of folks are saying, yeah, charity, why the hell should I? The government does that with my tax money. So one of the guys in the conversation had worked for what the community chest is now called. I don't even remember what it's called. Anyhow, we'll call it the community chest. And I made the point, we'd be better off doing away with it, doing away with the government programs and relying on charity. He said, well, you never went out and tried to collect money for charity. People don't want to give. If you relied on charity, you wouldn't get much of anything. And my response is, so if people don't want to do it, it's much better to force them to do it, right? Yeah, all in the name of freedom, liberty, and the D word, democracy. Well, nothing else works. And of course, he's right. So Stossel says, not all charities do good. Some are bad as government, but when they are well run, charities encourage independence. They also don't force us to give them money. There's an even better way to help people. Capitalism. Not that it'll convince most people. Senator Elizabeth Warren, better known as Pocahontas, complained that Elon Musk should pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else. Classic Elizabeth Warren. Classic Pocahontas, always saying that we should tax these people that have got too much wampum. Right? Yeah. And then here's Musk's answer. I'll pay more taxes than any American in history. 11 billion in the year we're talking about. Don't spend it all at once. Oh, wait. You did already. They sure did. The feds burned through $11 billion every 15 hours. Now Republicans and Democrats will spend even more. Musk, meanwhile, is trying to make Twitter profitable. Some of his ideas are bad. Some will fail. But at least Musk spends his own money, or money people willingly loan him. Warren and her fellow politicians take money from us by force. I prefer Musk's way. Billionaires sometimes do nasty things. Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg censored truthful reporting. Zuckerberg and Amazon's Jeff Bezos sneakily lobby for regulations. This is cool. Lobby for regulations like a higher minimum wage that give them advantages over their competitors. Donald Trump and Oprah Winfrey bought gross polluting yachts. But it's their own money. They're free to spend it on whatever they want. Most do better things with it than the government would. Zuckerberg invented better ways to connect with people. Bezos makes shopping easier and cheaper. Musk stopped socialist idiots from censoring my Twitter account, created better electric cars, and gave satellite internet to poor people. Wow. Businesses do better things because competition forces them to spend money well. If they don't spend well, they disappear. Government never disappears. When politicians fail, they force us to give them more of our money so they can do it again. People hate capitalists, but it's capitalists who create the jobs, lift people out of poverty, and feed the world. I'm a reporter, not an entrepreneur. I'm not likely to invent something and new and useful. So today, I'll give my money to charity. It makes me feel good. But the world benefits more from people like Musk and the millions of entrepreneurs who try new things. Let's give John Stossel a hand, Jose. And you don't have to be a Phi Beta Kappa from Harvard to understand these things. If you stop and think about it, and you're not sucked in by the usual liberal drivel about the underserved and of course the BIPOCs and all the rest of the identity politics and all the rest of the stuff, it's easy to figure out. My life is a whole lot better because the Walton family made billions of dollars with their store.
That's the curious and illogical thing about this argument that we have to tax everybody and capitalism is bad. The only way to get that money from taxes is from a capitalist.
Exactly.
If you eliminate that, you eliminate your program. So it's a weird cycle that they're trying to sell to us that doesn't really work. It's the same thing with some of these green energy stuff. They look at it in a small sphere, but they don't realize that all the other energy they're trying to get rid of is how they make some of this components, most of the components for this green energy. They don't tell us that story, and I think that's the thing that you reveal all the time is the story behind the story, the question behind the question. You look beyond just instead of zooming into the issue, you're zooming out so that we see the bigger picture.
Well, I do my best, Jose. You know, we could talk a little bit about economic theory, and you go all the way back to Wealth of Nations, the first economic textbook. And it heralded the discovery of division of labor and specialization. And the example used was making small pins. And one man, if he worked for 3 days, could probably make one pin. But 5 men, properly set up with division of labor and specialization, could make 100 pins in 1 day. So it's this kind of thinking that capitalists, you know, operate on a much larger scale. Now, in order to operate on that larger scale, there has to be an accumulation of capital. And there are 2 basic ways that capital can be accumulated. By capitalists who work hard, save their money, borrow money from other people, etc., understand finance. They develop the amount of capital to take advantage of Adam Smith's theory of division of labor and specialization. That's one way to do it. The other way is for the government to amass the capital necessary to do that. That's called socialism, where the government controls the factors of production and distribution. You know, the most corrupt capitalist that you could find, or not corrupt, but the most greedy, great word, greedy, capitalist that you could find is going to be of more service than the most generous socialists engaged in public service, right? You know, accumulating that capital and then using it in a socialist regime. They won't know what to make. They won't know how much of it to make. It'll be a disaster. And every place that has ever tried it has been nothing but an economic basket case. But you still got folks over there on the left, well, you know, socialism is more humane. It's more humanitarian. It's got a heart. And, of course, the old saying is that if you're not a liberal by the time you're 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative by the time you're 40, you have no brain. All right, let's take a short break, and I got somebody holding here in the green room. It's Michael on capitalism. I hope I know which Michael it is.
All 3 stations, all 3 morning shows. Thanks to all the listeners for Pika's Best, Choice Broadcasting has swept the top 3 best radio stations. The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101. Top 3 radio personalities, Kyle Mandapat, Ray Gibson, and Daryl Lizava. Put the power of Pika's Best to work for you. If you're an advertiser, call 671-888-7346 for information, rates, and packages. And let us get your message out to Pika's Best listeners with Pika's Best Broadcasters. And thanks for listening to Pika's Best.
Happy holidays, Guam. From now through January 13th, the Guam Visitors Bureau is giving you a chance to win $150 in cash just by sharing your Christmas spirit. Each week, GVB will announce the theme of the week, so take your best photo or video and upload to visitguam.com/Instaguam to enter for a chance to win $150 in cash. Winners will be announced every Friday. Brought to you by GVB, making Guam a better place to celebrate the season of giving.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK. 888-8255.
Okay, so here we go again back on Tall Tales. We started out with the usual pap from the Daily News for an editorial, and one line in it caused me to climb on my capitalist horse and bring to the fore an article by John Stossel, which filled a nice hole in the editorial news hole, and of course was right on point. Now I've got a caller here, Michael, who wants to talk about capitalism. So tell us everything you know about capitalism, Michael.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. Capitalism was a term created, I believe, by Karl Marx, and it was used to smear the concept of freedom. Basically, capitalism is nothing more than freedom. You have the freedom to decide if you want to own something or not. Under a capitalist society, you can choose whether to buy something from somebody or not, and to sell something to somebody or not. And so basically it was freedom. And totalitarians like Karl Marx didn't like that, but he could hardly tell people to be against freedom because everybody loves freedom. So he created this word capitalism. Das Kapital is his seminal book, which if you've ever read it, is absolute nonsense. I mean, it's just a diatribe of baloney. I have, and it's crazy. So capitalism, we always talk in capitalism as the rich guy. Capitalism is everybody. Anyone who wants to participate in freedom is a capitalist. End of discussion. That's it. It's that easy. Let's not let the left define our words for us. And so when we use the word capitalist, we got to remember it's freedom to buy or sell or own something. In a communist world, you're not allowed to own anything, and you better be happy about it.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail right on the head, Michael. Very, very, very well done. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is freedom, and it works. That's the nice thing about it. Now, I've traveled. I've been to socialist countries and communist countries. I've been to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. I've been to Cambodia when it was a communist country. I've been to Laos when it was a communist country. I've been in, I just mentioned Vietnam. I've been several places. I've visited several places in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. I've been to Cuba, etc. You wouldn't want to live in any one of those places. Cuba could be a wonderful place if it weren't for the fact that it's a communist country. My overwhelming impression of the Soviet Union was that it was perhaps the dirtiest place I've ever been. The buildings were dirty, the streets were dirty. I have a feeling that if a man didn't present himself with chronic ring around the collar, he would be seen as some kind of a show-off and ostracized. Yeah. It is not, none of it worked very well. Communism, the Soviet Union, it was said that they could build an intercontinental ballistic missile or a retractable fountain pen, a retractable ballpoint pen, but they couldn't do both at the same time. But we still got them. We still got Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. We've got our local lefties here, that shy away from the vocabulary, but zero in on the substance of what socialism is all about. Well, let's let the government do it, Why should I worry about it? We'll let the government do it. Okay, so we got through Semi Cotney, a little bit on socialism. I hope I've got my card here. Yeah. Of course, we start the card with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. I think everybody's pretty much got a handle on that. Don't ever think about going to a fiesta and saying, could I have some more orange rice? Unless you want to get bounced on your butt. Okay, so this is what I got on the card. I've got no public law 36-34 today. I got tired about talking about Rory's big raise, but I have a feeling I'll be talking about it next week. First item on the card, Mark Mendiola versus Swanson. Yesterday, Kenneth Swanson versus Board of Ed was on the card. Second item on the card is Tony Bauta versus Therese. And this was on the card yesterday as Democrats versus Therese. I'm going to go back to William Vertarbo versus Gov Guam because there was one item in his wish list that I thought I needed to comment on. I've got Smarts versus Equity. I've got Idiot Leftist of the Year versus Viewers, and Syndicalism versus Capitalism, which is really interesting. It's a little bit thick and heavy. I think I understand it, even though it's a little bit tough, but we'll get to it sooner or later. So that's the card for today, starting out with Mark Mendiola versus Swanson. And this is a story in the Post. Board selects Swanson to be superintendent of GDOE. It's too bad we have that copyright restriction, where we can't play the kind of music I really need for my show because Facebook would kick us off. Because if we did, every time our new superintendent's name came up, we'd go to Al Jolson. Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. The folks up north will see me no more when I get to Swanee. You know that song, Jose.
I do. I have a feeling you saw him live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah, I was kind of young at the time, but it still counts.
Was that the jazz singer? Or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first talkie.
The first one, yeah.
The first talkie, yeah. And, of course, you probably can't even buy a video or whatever nowadays because Al Jolson, who is a tremendous singer, is anybody looking? He did it in blackface. Yeah. So I understand there's a group that has found his cemetery, his gravestone in Hollywood, and they want to dig him up and burn him at the stake. How dare he, right?
That'll give him a permanent blackface.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. The decision on who will lead the Department of Education was made Tuesday night, but not all board members chose to vote for who will be the next school superintendent. 2 nominations were made during a board meeting held November 27, but even before board members cast their vote, Guam Education Board Chairman Mark Mendiola opened the floor for board members to discuss any potential conflicts of interest. Now, I turn to Mark Mendiola from there. And it's clear here that Mendiola, rather than do what he was elected to do as a member of the board, would much rather take an opportunity to virtue signal as being more personally rewarding. Mendiola asked to be excused from voting. What does he want to do, run for the legislature? Quote, "For mine, I would also request the same. I had every intent to be here for the interview of the second round of it, but unfortunately, I was not able to be here." Okay, well, stop right here. Then shut up and apologize and say, "I'm really sorry. I let the folks that voted for me down. I let you down. And I let all of the candidates who wanted to be director of education down. I did something bad. My bad, folks." That's what he should have said. But no, that wasn't what he said. He went on to say, "I believe we have good candidates before the board, but I would but I would like to engage. I think there are very thoughtful questions the committee did. I think there are very thoughtful questions. The committee did wonderful work. And in my humble opinion, should I render a vote not knowing the totality of the candidates, that would just be unfair for me to render a decision. Oh, what a wonderful, public-spirited, fair man. It was so wonderful, you know. And he's not going to be the chairman next year.
And he said it humbly.
And he said it humbly. Yeah, I suspect he and I probably share something. We're probably both very proud of our humility. So, you know, there's no sense doing what you're elected to do if you can virtue signal and see it reported in the paper. Now, board member Peter Adda kind of did the same thing, but not quite as eloquently as Mark Mendiola did. Mendiola won't be back, and remember yesterday, and of course, there was one person who voted, who did not vote for Mendiola. I'll pick that up here. Among the nominees for the position was Joseph Sanchez, current DOE Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, who was nominated by board member Robert Crisostomo. Sanchez's nomination failed with only 4 board member votes. Because the nomination failed, the floor was reopened to the board. Swanson was nominated by board member Maria Gutierrez. Swanson was duly selected, garnering 6 of the 7 vote casts. Now, who didn't vote for him? You kind of need to tell us that, Guam Daily Post. During the board meeting, it was noted that the selection was dependent on Swanson's acceptance. The board was to notify him Wednesday of a successful bid. The Post reached out to Mary O'Connor. I guess they didn't want to call her. Wednesday, however, information about whether he accepted the selection was not available as of press time. I guess I need to do a sunshine here to find out who didn't vote for and this is really important because you remember yesterday my analysis was that if Swanson does not have a contentious relationship with the board, it would be very unusual because it almost always happens. So I want to know who it was that didn't vote for him, because that may be where the contention begins. Okay, next on the card is we have Democrats versus Therese yesterday. Okay, let's take a short break and we'll come back to this item on the card, Tony Babauta versus Therese.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup.
Including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, before I get into Tony Babauta versus Therese, I got to pick up a couple of things I'm seeing here on Facebook. Jose Ted Pago, I think Venezuela's demise can be attributed largely to U.S. government sanctions on energy, food, etc., to bring regime change is in Cuba, which is still under U.S. embargo to this day. Jose, no. Venezuela has a tremendous amount of oil. And if the United States sanctions Venezuela, other countries would be more than happy to trade for oil for whatever they want. But they can't get the oil out of the ground and they can't refine it because of their socialist government setup. And you had Hugo Chavez, who brought socialism to Venezuela, and his idea was that, the same old thing. Too many people, too many non-Venezuelans were making too much money from the oil. So the government was going to take over the whole oil industry and run it. And they did. And they ran it right smack into the ground. Cuba is not a whole lot different. If you go to Cuba, you'll find that it's a real tribute to the Cuban people. You talk about adapt, overcome, make it do, whatever. They are really good at that. I saw the cars that I grew up with in the 1950s. In fact, I've got a picture of myself in a 1955 Chevy, which is maybe one of the best-looking cars ever made. So they're able to keep these old cars on the road, able to patch things up. MacGyver would be seen as someone who couldn't fix anything compared to the folks in Cuba. So they get by. And because they're Cubans, they get by and they kind of do it in good spirit. But the one thing you notice immediately in Cuba, but there's no wealth. There are no really nice houses. Nobody is driving Cadillacs. There's no wealth whatsoever because there's no way anybody can be wealthy. So you kind of get to a certain subsistence level in the socialist economy, and that's as far as you can go. Now, transportation in Cuba, it works like this. There's a railroad that runs from Havana, the capital, to Santiago on the eastern end. The tracks are there, the crossings are there, etc. And if you go to the depot in Havana, you see a lot of locomotives. Well, when I asked the guide that shepherded us around Cuba what the railroad schedule was like, he was very evasive. And the reason is because the trains don't run. They don't. You have to have an economy to make trains run. And, it would be so great if, you look at the geography of Cuba. Cuba at one time, before Castro came along, was one of the most prosperous countries in the Western Hemisphere. But the system in Cuba nowadays, the transportation system is this. The only people who are driving modern cars, a lot of Japanese cars, no American cars, a lot of Japanese cars, Korean cars, etc., are government officials. Surprise, surprise. So you'll see these cars parked around government offices. And if you wanted to go from small town A to small town B, there would be checkpoints. And you'd go to that checkpoint, and every government vehicle that drove through that checkpoint would have to stop. And if the car weren't full, he would have to pick up passengers at that checkpoint in the order in which they arrived at the checkpoint and take them at least to the next. Yeah, that's the public transportation, the rural public transportation system in Cuba. So, no, it's not because of American sanctions. And once again, the old Soviet Union, Russia, the Tsarist Russia before the revolution had tremendous national resources. And it was not any kind of an economic basket case. After the communist revolution, it quickly became, in many respects, a basket case. And when we finally came to grip with it, the United States ambassador to Russia or to the Soviet Union in the 1920s was a diplomat named George Kennan, Kennan. And Kennan sent back to Washington what is popularly known as the Long Telegram. And what Kennan said was, this economy will fall apart of its own weight. It'll take some time, but it cannot continue on. It'll fall apart of its own weight. The proper strategy for the United States is just to contain communism where it is. Don't try to conquer any territories that the communists have. Just contain it, and ultimately it'll fall apart. And guess what happened in 1991? It fell apart. And all of the wonderful satellites, etc., all of the Soviet socialist republics all split off. It all fell apart. And that's what happens because socialism cannot work. It can be in a situation where it'll cause a lot of people to die and suffer tremendous hardships, but it cannot provide the kind of system that people who care anything about freedom and longevity care about.
It seems like it's fueled by envy, a very passive envy.
Absolutely.
And that's never productive, and that never ends well.
Right. Okay, there was another one that I saw here that I wanted to read into the record. This Jose got it right this time. Jose Ted Paco Jr., I heard Cope Cristobal is bringing red rice for the governor's inauguration. That's good. Yeah, Bonnie Silva points out they still have the cars, and if the United States ever went back to a normal relationship with Cuba, and I want to comment on that too, you could bet that every automobile used car dealer in the country would be down there snapping up those cars, and people who chugged around in a 55 Chevy and just barely made ends meet all these years would become rich overnight, because those cars would be worth a fortune once you could bring them back to the United States. Now, you remember during the Obama administration, Obama moved a little bit towards, well, let's be friends with the Cubans and everything. And maybe the Castro brothers aren't all that bad. And at the time, I said, this is a terrible mistake, because there are people in Cuba who understand socialism, understand communism, understand Cuba, freedom, democracy, and all the rest of that stuff, who are just waiting for the opportunity to overthrow the communist government. And they're probably looking at the United States as a country that would at least encourage it. We're not going to train Cuban exiles to make another landing at what the Cubans call Playa Girón. We call the Bay. We're not going to do that again. But we could really make it easy for a Cuban that's not communist or that doesn't want to be communist to get back into the family of nations. But when Obama did that, all of those folks are walking around saying, shucks, that just emboldens the communists. And sure enough, Raul was probably worse than Fidel when you come right down to it. And things are not going to change until the opportunity arises to get rid of the Castro family and all of the destruction that they created in Cuba. That's my 2 cents worth on it. Okay, let's see, we're going to go to Tony Babauta versus Therese, correct? And yesterday I spent some time talking about the Democrat caucus. Now, I've been to Cuba and I've been to the Soviet Union, but one place I've never been is the Democrat caucus. And one place I never want to go is the Democrat caucus. I've been to a couple of Republican caucuses, and I know how caucuses work, and I explained the process yesterday that nothing is settled until everything is settled. Let's take a short break here, and at the end of the break, we've got Hope's screen test back again. So make sure you stick around for that.
Is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Baggage is piling up. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. Bags belonging to Southwest Airlines passengers whose flights were canceled are piling up at some of the airports. The airline says it will take days for it to get back on schedule. The White House is not happy about the carrier's massive cancellations.
Air Force One got President Biden to his Caribbean vacation, but thousands of Americans weren't so lucky. Now his administration is vowing to hold Southwest Airlines to their customer service commitments for everything from meal vouchers to hotels to refunds. Southwest, pledging to earn back customer trust, may face a long road ahead. Stocks down more than 10% in the last 2 days. There will also be scrutiny from Congress, and there may have been trouble brewing even before the holiday rush.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich. FlightAware shows Southwest has again canceled more than half its flights. For Thursday, that is some 2,300. After days of bitter cold in the Buffalo, New York area and the blizzard's 4+ feet of snow, temperatures have finally gotten above freezing.
While the warmer temperatures and blue skies are a nice break, over the weekend some rain is expected, with the National Weather Service saying that some minor flooding is possible with the snow melt. It's yet another challenge to a community that has endured so much.
Fox Weather's Max Gordon, the storm leaving at least 37 people dead in the Buffalo area. Meantime, an atmospheric river is taking aim for the West Coast. It's expected to bring heavy rain and wind for California and the Northwest. And the U.S. says starting next week, travelers from China must test negative for COVID.
The news comes as coronavirus cases soar in China. Doctors describing chaos, staff and ambulance shortages, high mortality rates among the elderly, and not enough beds.
Fox's Alex Hogan. And authorities in Ukraine say a Russian missile attack this morning is targeting several regions of the country, including Kiev. America's listening to Fox News.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
The January 6th committee on Wednesday decided to withdraw its subpoena for former President Trump as it concludes its work this month. Committee Chair Congressman Benny Thompson noted in a letter, in light of the imminent end of the investigation, the committee can no longer pursue the information covered by the subpoena. Trump responded on his social media platform saying, in part, they probably did it because they know I did nothing wrong, or they were about to lose in court. In any event, he says, the subpoena is dead. The subpoena may be dead, but the committee's referral to the Justice Department that Trump be prosecuted on 4 criminal charges is not. An independent review finds the state of Tennessee failed to follow its own death penalty protocol.
The review, requested by Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, says the state's refusal to follow the rules resulted in multiple executions being done without proper testing. Tennessee uses 3 drugs in its executions, beginning with midazolam to render the inmate unconscious. A pharmacist warned state officials in 2017 the drug doesn't alleviate pain from the second and third drugs. Lee paused all executions in May. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
Walmart wants a judge to dismiss a lawsuit filed by some of its employees.
3 employees who work for Walmart at their store in Chesapeake, Virginia, are suing the retail giant for $50 million each, saying the company was negligent when hiring a shift supervisor who would, last month, commit a deadly mass shooting inside the store. 6 people were killed that night. A filing by Walmart's lawyers say the company is appalled and horrified by the event, but that the employees suing should be filing claims for workers' compensation instead. Eben Brown, Fox News.
And 3 NBA players were ejected from a game Wednesday after a fight between the Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons broke out late in the first half. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Happy holidays, Guam. From now through January 13th, the Guam Visitors Bureau is giving you a chance to win $150 in cash just by sharing your Christmas spirit. Each week, GVB will announce the theme of the week, so take your best photo or video and upload to visitguam.com/Instaguam to enter for a chance to win $150 in cash. Winners will be announced every Friday. Brought to you by GVB, making Guam a better place to celebrate the season of giving.
All 3 stations, all 3 morning shows. Thanks to all the listeners for Pika's Best, Choice Broadcasting has swept the top 3 best radio stations. The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101. Top 3 radio personalities, Kyle Mandapat, Ray Gibson, and Daryl Lizava. Put the power of Pika's Best to work for you. If you're an advertiser, call 671-888-7346 for information, rates, and packages. And let us get your message out to Pika's Best listeners with Pika's Best Broadcasters. And thanks for listening to Pika's Best. Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Another very interesting run of Tailgaters Rogues Gallery. And I know Jose is just sitting there itching to tell you how you too can become a picture on the Tailgaters Rogues Gallery. Go ahead, Jose.
Thank you, Bob. Just click or point your browser to www.thepoint.gu. Click on the picture with the shirt and the beard. It'll bring you to the link where you can order your shirt. When it arrives, take a selfie with you in the shirt and send that selfie to the Point's WhatsApp at 671-797-8255. For those who are viewing this live stream on YouTube and Facebook, the links are in the comment.
Thank you very much, Jose. So we look forward to seeing you tailgaters in there on our Rogues Gallery. It's a very priceless place to have your picture shown. You know, the bragging rights are pearls beyond price. Okay, it's we've had to deprive you of Hope's screen test for quite some time because we've had technical difficulties, but we're back in a place where we can do it again. But just let me read a little bit of a an introduction to Hope Cristobal here. She was a senator once upon a time. She is now the chairman of the Chamorro Language Commission. She is an arch separatist, right up there with Robert Underwood and some of the other arch separatists. As you'll see when we run the video. And here's something that ran in Pacific Island Times. Cristobal, who served as a senator from 1995 to 1997, was the sponsor of local statutes that created the Commission on Decolonization and established a Chamorro registry. And then she's held many titles over the year. And the reason that she got her face in this issue of the Pacific Island Times is because she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by a professor named Natividad at the University of Guam. And then here's the interesting part. As an activist, Cristobal is not afraid of confrontation. At the Black Lives Matter rally in Hagatna last year, there were counter-protesters harassing us, Cristobal said.
That's a plural, protesters.
Counter-protesters were harassing us. I wasn't afraid. I didn't back down. There are always people out there who will challenge you. These are just part of the journey. It can be hard because I'm an educator. I went to the BLM rally because I want to show my support for oppressed people. Yeah. But she didn't back down when these protesters, were harassing her. So we're going to show you exactly how bad the harassment by those protesters was and how courageous Hope Cristobal was when she faced them. Now, I'm not using them in the modern sense. I'm not using it to mean one person. I'm meaning it to use two or more people. Go ahead and run it, Jose.
Colonizer! You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization. Same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. Get off my island!
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest and what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous Chamorro. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw how sige Jordan Tano. Titaw tano how. Waho bini taw tano. Waho bini magahoda. Waho son na kay you bini. Hago tata na son mo bini. What's on You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please, sponsor.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, partner. Please. No, you can't run them.
What happened to him?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Ay, mamalo.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
Si Diyos malasi.
Well, there it is. And, I show this every week. I had to skip for a little while because of technical problems, but I'm always amazed at the courage showed by Hope Cristobal in the face of those counter-protesters that were harassing her.
Or her ability to tell it like it happened.
Exactly. Yeah, man. When it comes to telling it, when it comes to the narrative and the truth, you know where hope comes from on that. And her delivery is such, I'm always amazed at how she can talk. Let me try that. How she can talk with her teeth clenched so tightly together. It's possible, but boy, it's hard. Yeah. So that's Hope Cristobal, folks, the voice and face of the local separatist movement, those that think that Guam should be an independent country free of American oppression. Can you imagine living in she has a role in the government? She has, you know, they nominated her for the Nobel Peace Prize. She got elected once upon a time. She was appointed as chairman of the Chamorro Language Commission. I think life in a Cristobal regime would be extremely arduous unless you sign up for identity politics, which, of course, she illustrated quite well just exactly how identity politics works. Hope Cristobal. We'll play it again next Monday. And tomorrow's Friday, so we're going to play the Lou Leon Guerrero show tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to go back and pick up here Democrats versus Therese Terlahi and Tony Babauta versus Therese Terlahi. Before the break, I started to talk about how yesterday I explained how caucuses worked. And the caucus takes place after the votes are counted and before the first session of the new legislature, which is always the first Monday in January. Today is January 2nd. It just happens to be a holiday. And at that January 2nd meeting, the officers and attaches of the legislature will be sworn in. The attaches being the recording secretary, the sergeant at arms, the chaplain, and legislative council. Those are the attaches. The officers of the legislature will be sworn in. That would be the speaker, the vice speaker, chairman of rules. And this is an extremely important part of starting out a new legislature, but they don't do it like the girls at the Bridge Club do. They don't call the session to order, and then someone just kind of impulsively stands up and says, "Oh, I nominate Shirley." It doesn't work that way. This stuff has all been cooked before the session ever starts. It all occurs in the proverbial smoke-filled room. And in the smoke-filled room, there's a lot of horse trading that goes around. Because not only are the officers of the legislature chosen, committees are set up, committee chairmen are set up, and I mentioned yesterday that there's no set pattern. Committees are tailored around the desires of the chair, of the people who become chairs of the committee. And there's a lot of horse trading, where somebody, someone would take a committee provided that two of the three things that are talked about as being in that committee jurisdiction remain, but the third one goes somewhere else. Like, for instance, I would take education. I would take the Department of Education. I would take the university, and I'd take GCC, but don't stick the other stuff like the library and the other stuff in there with it, right? Or maybe the other way around. I'll take I'll take higher education. I'll take the university. I'll take GCC, but don't even think about sticking me with the Department of Education. So that's how it works, and it's an interesting iterative process where finally, when it's all over, the committee chairs, the committee jurisdictions are all ironed out, and the officers of the legislature are chosen. Of course, Speaker is the big one, and we saw how Tina Rose Monga Barnes, was deposed as the Speaker last time around by Therese Terlahi. Now, when Tina stopped being the Speaker, they had to really sweeten the pot for her, And the way they sweetened the pot was they gave her chairman of the Committee on Rules, which is the powerful committee in the legislature, and they gave her vice speaker. Now, the word on the street was that Therese was only able to become speaker because she garnered Republican support. In the last legislature, there were, let's see, 8 Republicans. Yeah, no, 7 Republicans. Yeah. Couldn't have been 8, yeah. So enough Republicans joined with enough Democrats to make Theresa speaker, and in order to get Tina Rose Munga Barnes to gracefully accede to that, they had to give her a lot. And of course, this was all done before closed doors because as much as the Democrats probably didn't like the idea of the Republicans playing a role in their own choice of leadership, it was preferable to do it the way they did than to do it at that first session on Monday in front of an audience, reporters, cameras, and everybody else. And I've told you the story about how Don Parkinson got to be speaker, and that's exactly what happened. Republicans, the Democrats made a deal, and they installed Parkinson as the speaker instead of the Democrat closed doors nominee. Very interesting. So, you know, the old saying, I think it was Mark Twain that said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So here we are now, and we're going to swear in a new legislature on Monday, and we don't know who has what committee. We don't know what the committee's jurisdictions are, and we don't know who the speaker is. And of course, you can't do the rest until you decide who the speaker is going to be. Because if Teresa's holding out for the speaker and she doesn't get speaker, that can upset all of the other alignments that were agreed to up until the time the speaker was chosen. So I got some really good intel today that goes like this, that a writing came from Tony Babauta to the Democrats. And the writing said that any Democrat who relies on Republican votes to become Speaker of the legislature will be cast out of the Democrat Party and out of the caucus, of course. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So, you know, assuming the veracity of that report, and it came from an extremely reliable source, he probably will be calling later on. I think you've got his theme song there. No, more reliable than that. He probably had to undergo all kinds of danger to develop this intel. An extremely reliable source, yeah. Now, I don't know if you know much about ninjas, Jose, but ninjas were Japanese assassins. And I remember the first time that Hawaii Five-0 dealt with ninjas on the show. And the explanation was they were so good and so intrepid that they would do anything to score. And they told the story of a ninja that had a target, and the target, you know, was always very closely guarded. You could never get access to him, etc. So this ninja snuck into an outdoor latrine, what we used to call a privy back in the mainland, an outhouse. He crawled in there and then was able to hang from the ceiling of the outhouse for hours on end until his target came in to do a natural function, and that's when the ninja got him. This gives you some idea of the intrepidness of ninjas. Well, I know a little bit about that. I don't know everything there is to know about ninjas, and I certainly don't know everything there is to know about our Carl, but the talk on the street is that R. Carl tops the ninjas. There's no telling what R. Carl had to do to develop the intel that I just told you.
I hear he employs the flies on the wall.
It could very well be. And, you know, when Chuck Norris goes to bed, he checks to make sure our Carl isn't under the bed. Yeah. So that's the story. So, and the intel is that if that Therese can't win unless she gets all 6 Republicans, meaning she's got herself and one other Democrat. So she'd have to get all 6 Republicans. So how would that play out? Let's say they can't make an agreement. You know, let's say it's 9:30 on the Monday morning, and they're still at it until finally somebody says, hey, we got to knock this off. The hall is full. We're supposed to start at 10. We can't do our usual start the 10 o'clock session at 10:45 because we got people waiting for us. What are we going to do? Come on, you guys. Therese, just let it go. Sota, Gatson, sota. And Therese says, you know, you guys have not dealt with me fairly. You go ahead and do what you have to do when the session starts. So the session starts, and Therese says nominations are now open for Speaker of the Legislature. And the duty Democrat nominates Therese. Vote 7 in favor. Motion fails. And then a Republican stands up and said, I nominate Therese Terlahi. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it happened before. It could happen. And some of the signs are here right now. Now, put yourself in the place of a senator, of a Democrat senator. And Tony Bobauta makes it known to you that if you rely on Republican support, if you do anything he doesn't like rely on Republican, you will be removed from the party. And of course, if you're not a Democrat, you can't be in the Democrat caucus. So it's, I guess I will invent a term. If that happened, you would be apparoned. You couldn't perform your functions. You couldn't go into the caucus, etc.
Deflocked.
Yeah, deflocked.
You can't fly with them anymore.
Yeah. So, you know, if I were anybody, I would say, you're not the boss of me, Tony Bobauta. Why don't you just crawl back up to the 19th floor, spend the night there, see how well that works for you. Or maybe it's time for you to go back to Washington and be a deputy secretary. No, that didn't work for you either, did it? So who do you think you are? You have never been elected to anything.
Or kept the job.
Or kept a job doing anything. And who do you think you are to come in and tell Democrats, senators, what to do and what's going to happen to them if they don't? I don't care if you are the party chairman. I'm sticking with the other folks that got elected to this office. And I'm not going to take any of your beep, beep, or bleep, bleep, actually. Yeah. That's the way I feel.
I wonder if caller ID indicates it was the same call that made it to UOG.
Yeah. Well, you have to speculate, because let's just stop and talk about Therese Terlahi for a little bit. You know, I've known Therese for a long, long time. I've known her dad, may he rest in peace, going all the way back to the time when he was a senator. He was a great guy. And I've known Therese. I knew Therese was legislative counsel for the Democrats in the 27th when I was a senator. And just put it this way, I think it would take an extremely determined person not to like Therese Terlahi. I suppose it's possible, but it's certainly beyond my capability. And I'm pretty good at not liking folks if I feel like it. But I tell you, it would be really hard not to like Therese Terlahi. And I think that the way she has handled the speakership is a reflection of that she has, you know, a feeling for every single person in that body, but regardless of party, etc. She has her own agenda, her own ideas. I'm not really crazy about her abortion position, but she is what she is. She got more votes than anybody else last time around, including Governor Leon Guerrero. So obviously the people like her. So you would think that it would be in the Democrats' interest to play their to play their ace, at the beginning of the game. But apparently Tony Babazza wants to reshuffle because he's got like an 8 of spades down there that he wants to play.
I heard that Vanessa Williams ghost wrote that letter for him. These are just rumors.
Yeah, the Williams 10, right?
The Williams 10.
Yeah. Now, of course, the rumors also say that the contender, the guy who could have been a contender, could have had class, etc., is in the running for speaker. Now, if you just take the title, this would be my reaction just to the title of speaker. Who else would be a better speaker than Joe St. Augustine? Man, when that guy speaks, he doesn't even need a microphone.
We don't need a speaker.
Yeah.
For the speaker.
You don't need a loudspeaker, that's for sure. When Joe's on the floor speaking, you can hear him outside. Of course he should be the speaker. Right, Jose? All right, let's head for Wrigley Field.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Check out the newest hydro and garden center to hit Guam, Crop King Hydro. We have a huge selection of plant nutrients, soils, hydroponic mediums, organic pest control pumps, plant support, tools, and so much more. Call 635-4769. 635-GROW. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 at the Dededo Satina Mall, right across from Payless and Paradise Fitness. For whatever you grow, think Crop King Hydro. Crop King Hydro.
Okay, so here we are. Finished a seventh inning stretch at Wrigley Field. That means I got 2 more innings to go until the show is over. And I'm going to go back to the letter from, what was that guy's name? William Vertarbo, who wrote a letter to the editor that I spent a little time on yesterday. Talked about the parts of the government that didn't work. Talked about the parts of the government that do work. Talked about funding, and then he got into what he saw as some solutions. And I've got to pick that up because I want to comment on that. The system of accountability is one of the problems. The responsibilities for individual village problems have been given to the mayors. They have individual budgets, but when it comes to extraordinary funding like abandoned vehicle removal or individual school improvements, they must go to the legislature where no senator has direct responsibility for that village. Senators should be directly responsible for individual areas of Guam, either by village or district. They should be elected by the voters of that village or district and run against an opponent. Guam voters vote for someone responsible for the entire island. They call that governor. We don't need 15 more governors. It's true that senators have some responsibility for laws that affect the entire island. Senators from states and representatives from Congress still have to be elected by the voters from the district the senator is responsible to. Okay, here's my take on this. It sounds logical. It seems like a really good idea. Because under our current system, you can vote for somebody, but no matter how much you dislike someone, you cannot vote against that person. Now, before the election, I got into strategic voting a little bit and told you the best you could do if you want to vote against somebody, but it's really cumbersome and not effective at all. So you cannot vote against somebody, so you don't have that head-to-head race between candidates for the legislature that tends to bring out the best and the worst in the candidates. And, of course, it's the way we do it in the United States in the House of Representatives. Wisconsin has 8 districts. It sends 8 people to the House of Representatives. And the battles in each district for that seat are usually hotly contested. And so it seems like it ought to work really well here. Well, point number 1, we tried it once before. Yeah. Back in, was it the 13th, 12th and 13th, 13th, 14th, I can't remember. But the way it worked out, we had smaller at-large districts, and we only had 1 single-member district. And that was most of the southern half of the island because of the way the population is distributed. Most of the people live north of the Nimitz Hill foothills. So what happened when the districting was done, a statute passed that laid out the districts, and districts, this was back when we had 21, there were 3, 4, 5 in a district and 1 from the south. It was really good for real estate folks because so many people wanted to move out of Tamuning, which is where everybody lived. Moved from Tamuning to Dadido or here or there because they wanted to keep their seats, but they didn't want to be running against, they didn't want to run against hot competition from their own party even. So that was the first thing that happened. So if a person lives in Tamuning all of his life and moves to Dadido 3 months before the election, is that really what we had in mind? It's legal, it's okay, it's ethical, but is that what we had in mind? And then we didn't have really at-large districts, because in order to have at-large districts, you'd have to cut the villages up into small pieces. So, we tend to think of Dadido, Jigo, the large villages, as having some sort of municipal integrity. But Dadido with 30,000 people out of, now we have 154,000. Do the math. Dadido is going to have several districts. And the way talented is distributed, there's nothing that says that the talent will be evenly distributed among those districts. You could wind up with a situation where you had a district and nobody wanted to run from it. The island, of course, is an island. It's a small island. It's not a tiny island. It's a small island, 212 square miles. If we attempted to break it up into 15 or 21 districts, I can see nothing but chaos arising from that. It's a logical, sensible idea, but I don't think it's practical given the demographics of our island. So I'm glad that William, it's a hard name to pronounce, William Vertarbo sent this letter in, because these are the kinds of things we need to be thinking about, not whose cousin is going to get a job working for the senator that just got elected.
Or where the kingfisher is going to be housed.
Or where the kingfisher, what part of that island the kingfisher is going to build his nest. Okay, next on the card is smarts versus equity. And this is just another example of how our education system has become so woke and so Marxist. Now, you remember the what is the Communist Manifesto? This is what, in the beginning, this is what Marx said the slogan for communism was and must be. to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. So the more able you are, the more you're supposed to produce, and what you get is geared in on what you need. They changed that. It didn't work so well, but that's how communism started, to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. Virginia administrators under fire at elite high school for reportedly delaying academic recognitions in the interest of equity. And this is my buddy Jonathan Turley again. We previously discussed the lowering of admission standards at Virginia's elite Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology to achieve diversity goals. In order to be diverse, you got to lower the standards. Now the school is again under fire for waiting roughly a month to distribute national merit certificates in the name of equity. The decision meant that students could not report the awards on their college applications before the passage of the October 31 deadline. Journalist and advocate Asra Nomani alleges that the delay was due to the Thomas Jefferson School's equity efforts and its new equity outcomes for every student without exception strategy. She also alleges that the most impacted, due to their higher percentage among recipients, were Asian students. We got to do something about those. They just do well at everything they do, Jose.
How dare you?
Yeah. An analogous claim to the alleged anti-Asian discrimination in the two Supreme Court admissions cases now pending before the Supreme Court. Nomani's post appeared in the New York Post. Nomani claims that Thomas Jefferson High School's principal, now here is a name you can really sink your teeth into. The name of the principal of Thomas Jefferson High School, her first name is Anne. Her second name is Bonitabus. Bonitabus, Bonitaibus. You know, bonita, pretty, right? Ibus, a classic Latin suffix, a classic ending for a Latin noun. Bonitabus, I guess she's the pretty one, right? Yeah, Anne Onitabus told a concerned parent in an email that the school had received the national merit certificates in mid-October and that she had signed them within 48 hours. However, the awards were not distributed by teachers until November 14, about a month late. She claims that Brandon, boy, it just gets better and better, huh? Brandon Kosatka. Brandon Kosatka. K-O-S-A-T-K-A. K-O-S-A-T-K-A. Brandon Kosatka, the director of student services, admitted on a call with another parent that the delay was based on a desire to recognize students for who they are as individuals, not focus on their achievements. That's the way it should be, right, Jose?
All the time.
Yeah. Nomani revealed emails from parents objecting to equity concerns overriding academic achievement when these students needed to include the recognition in their college applications. Whatever the reason for the delay, these students missed an important credential for inclusion in applications to highly competitive colleges. So we're not going to give these merit certificates to the smart kids because we value the dumb kids too. So we value the dumb kids because they're individuals just like the smart kids. So it's only fair that we not let the smart kids take advantage of these merit certificates. If they wanted merit certificates, they should have been dumb. No, that wouldn't work either, would it? Bonitibus has pushed for equality-based policies at Thomas Jefferson High School and to move away from its tradition of focusing solely on academic achievement. That tradition had made the school the #1 ranked high school in the nation. We can't have that. What about those schools where there are a lot of dumb? No, we can't have that. The new policies have led to an effort to limit the number of Asian Americans to achieve, quote, racial diversity. It's possible to achieve diversity in these programs without racial discrimination or criteria, but it's not easy or fast as just leveling down entry standards or delaying recognitions. We can focus on underperforming high public schools to better prepare minority students. Yeah, but,
What's to prepare for?
Yeah. However, with continuing dismal performances of public educators in major cities, that's not a welcome approach for many in education. It's easier to reduce entry standards than it is to elevate performance rates, of course. And we know that under the new dictionary, the new woke dictionary, if you look up the word better, you know what the synonym for better is? Easier. Yeah, they mean the same thing. What is striking about these controversies is that neither parents nor public appear to support the new policies. Thomas Jefferson High School has always been a point of pride for many of us in Fairfax County, even if our kids did not go to the school. It was meant to be a school that was reserved for brilliant students. Oh, reserving a school for kids just because they're brilliant? How dare you? Brilliant students are able to take extremely advanced courses and perform university-level research. The policies under Bonitibus should be subject of outside review and how they are impacting a school that has long been the gold standard nationally. Public schools are subject to public standards set with the input of the board and the parents. The parental input has been clearly not carried much weight with Bonitibus. It's time for more public debate over the future of Thomas Jefferson High School. And that's everywhere you look. So what happens to a society? Well, let me back up a second. A society, in order to prosper, has to have smart people. And by smart people, I don't mean people that have memorized a lot of stuff and et cetera. I mean people who have minds that are capable of doing things that can cause creation. Elon Musk is a smart person. Jeff Bezos is a smart person. Mark Zuckerberg is a smart person. The guy who used to hang around out in the front here, who's no longer here, if he may not have been a smart person. That's why he was a street person. Maybe not. I don't know. But when a society decides to deliberately devalue its smart, it's brilliant, its achievers, its accomplished people, that society is headed for a dead end. And we can't seem to get there faster in the United States. A country that was the greatest country in the world for, that did more to provide an upstanding living for any, even people that didn't even live in the United States. And the left, the lefties, the woke folks, the Marxists, have got a wrecking bar, and they've set out to wreck everything they can. The tearing down the statues is symbolism. The tearing down a school like Thomas Jefferson in Virginia, that's the real goal. Very disappointing. All right, let's head for Wrigley Field.
Churchill
We've been to Wrigley already.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, now we're going to go backwards. We're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous. We talked about, smart people, brilliance, how essential it is for a society to take advantage of those of its members who are achievers, who have gray matter in their brain housing group that functions. And now we're going to go to the other end. This is something I plucked from Town Hall. It's written by Derek Hunter. The title is Idiot Leftist of the Year, the winner. The culmination of a series of nominees for the absolute biggest idiot or idiots the left offered up during 2022. All the nominees can be found here, with the honorable mentions found here, and there are links that I don't have time to go into. But the interesting thing about the article I'm looking at, there's a picture at the top of the article. Guess who's in the picture? Let's show the folks. Yeah. Rachel Mad Dog. It's almost unfair to include an entire cable network in this contest with dozens of employees, each rowing in the direction of stupid, compared to individuals paddling their idiot kayaks in a circle until they tip over. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. So congratulations to PMSNBC for winning the first annual Idiot Leftist of the Year award. For all the moronic ramblings and horrible decisions, Joe Biden is ultimately a doddering old man living out his final years with other people's hand up his backside like a puppet.
I hope so.
Karine Jean-Pierre is, quote, historic and one of the all-time dumbest people to ever walk the planet. But there's a subtle yet important difference between the dumb and being an idiot. She falls on the wrong side of it. The woman who looks like Larry Zonka was a moment of stupid where she resigned pretty quickly afterwards, which shows a level of awareness a true idiot couldn't possess. All the flying monkeys with the press passes trolling social media for offense and targets are worthy, but so many of them either work for or appear on MSNBC that their stupid only enhances the choice of MSNBC. Contrast. My God, just think about all the resources available to MSNBC. All the connections and outlets of NBC News, all the cash of NBC and Comcast, and what they put on the air is the best they can come up with? Saying they have a larger audience than CNN is like saying Stacey Abrams is a better candidate than Beto O'Rourke. You know, they stole the election. They stole it from Case Stacey.
No, thank you to both.
Yeah. It might be technically true because Beto lost by 2 more points, but they're both losers. MSNBC has an audience. It's just small. The purpose, at least on the surface, of an organization claiming to be about disseminating news is to convey that information to people so they become better informed, smarter people. MSNBC does the opposite of that proudly. The star of MSNBC is Rachel Maddow, or for Tall Tales purposes, Rachel Mad Dog, a conspiracy theorist who makes paranoid Oliver Stone seem mellow and sane. Honestly, watch any of her occasional $30 million per year for 1 day of work monologues, and you'll see someone who makes the character of Captain Queeg seem well-adjusted and trusting. Captain Queeg was a Kane Mutiny court-martial. Great movie. Humphrey Bogart was the captain. He was called back to active duty in World War II, and he had a crew of wise-asses, and he wasn't competent. And he said some really silly things. He did some really things, and he was court-martialed. And then the full name of the movie is The Court-Martial of Captain Queeg. Very good movie. Next time it comes on 39, make sure you watch it.
I think I've seen a recent version with Mel Gibson. Is that the same
I
story?
can't imagine Mel Gibson as Captain Queeg, but
Mutiny, I think it was called.
Say again?
Mutiny, I think. I'll look it up. But
yeah,
I've heard about the other one before.
yeah, it's a classic, and you know, Queeg was a guy who seemed competent in short bursts, but was obviously kind of off his rocker. So, honestly, watch any of Rachel Mad Dog's occasional $30 million per year for 1 day of work monologues, and you'll see someone who makes the character of Captain Queeg seem well-adjusted and trusting.
You know what's funny is she was always touted as the smartest person there, all her degrees and her CV, everything, and she still hasn't proven it.
No. Okay, Nicole Wallace is a former alleged Republican angry about being passed over for important jobs after her time in the W. Bush administration. I want to talk about Nicole Wallace a little bit, too. Nicole Wallace and, what was his first name? Schmidt, it'll come to me, wrote a book about Sarah Palin. And it was very uncomplimentary about Sarah Palin, but very complimentary about Mr. Schmidt and about Nicole Wallace. And it was very obvious that Nicole Wallace used her job as one of the key advisors to Sarah Palin just to elevate herself. So Sarah Palin is a small-town girl from a small town who played in a very small field, and all of a sudden she goes from Class C ball to the majors. So you would think that they'd break her in easy, right? Schedule her for some interviews with friendly reporters, local reporters, friendly reporters, let her kind of test it out a little bit. Nicole Wallace, shortly after the announcement was made, scheduled Sarah Palin with Katie Couric. It's a real feather in Nicole's cap. Sarah didn't do so well. So when they wrote this book, Schmidt and Wallace apparently used a technique that Robert Novak pioneered called legal wiretapping. And here's how legal wiretapping works. You want to do an expose on an organization. So you find a couple, you do a kind of an analysis, and you figure who you could appeal to with the least problem. And you pick out a couple of people and you pull them aside. And you say, my name is Robert Novak. I'm going to write an expose about your outfit, but I need somebody on the inside. If you consent to be my insider and you give me the material I need to write my book, you will come out looking like a pro. You will come out being a champ. Oh, I got to go. And I don't have time for my Biden piece today, so I just got to say, okay, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Thousands still stranded. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. A lot of people still not traveling on Southwest Airlines as the carrier struggles to recover from the blizzard and a system meltdown. President of Southwest Airlines Pilots Association, Captain Casey Murray, tells Fox News.
At the end of the day, Southwest wasn't prepared. And unfortunately, this has been a decade in the making. We have sounded alarm bells. We have tried to get them to change processes, but it's a combination of processes, outdated technology, and infrastructure.
Exhausted travelers are seeking alternative routes with other airlines on the ground, by rental car or train, or they have just simply given up. FlightAware shows Southwest has canceled more than 2,300 flights for today. The U.S. says starting next week, people flying in from China will have to test negative for COVID.
That will take effect on January 5th for all adults, children who are 2 years of age or older. Now, this news does follow a move by other countries that we've seen in recent days. Italy, Japan, Malaysia, Taiwan have all now required negative COVID tests.
Fox's Alex Hogan. Italy says the first 2 flights it tested from China, more than half the passengers were positive. Prosecutors on Long Island, New York, are investigating Congressman-elect George Santos. The Republican admitted to lying about his heritage, education, career during the campaign.
The investigation into Santos was opened by the DA of Nassau County, Ann Donnelly, also a Republican. Donnelly, in a statement, said the fabrications were nothing short of stunning, and any crime committed would be prosecuted.
Fox's Cornell Scott. Santos will be sworn in with the new Congress on January 3rd. America's listening to Fox News.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
5 inches of rain by tomorrow.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com. Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
Air raid sirens blaring across Ukraine today. Officials say that Russian missiles are striking several regions, including the capital city, Kyiv, as Moscow continues to target the country's infrastructure. Meantime, Russia says it won't accept Ukrainian President Zelensky's 10-point peace plan.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says the plan rejects realities that 4 Ukrainian regions are now part of Russia. This as Russia continues shelling civilians in those regions. The UN now counts 18,000 civilian casualties as a result of the Russian invasion.
Fox's Nate Foy in Kyiv. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly becomes one of the first Democratic governors to ban the use of TikTok on state-issued devices. And beginning today, you can legally buy marijuana in New York City.
New York State's first legal recreational marijuana dispensary opens today in Manhattan. The first pot sales will be at